Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Kwe Kakina. This press conference is being held in Ottawa on Monday, April 7th. With us today are officials to discuss the security of the federal election. There are several of you on the dais here, so please introduce yourself and your title before giving your first remarks. I'm the moderator, Greg Quinn with Market News International. Before we begin, an audio safety message. To prevent disruptive and potentially harmful audio feedback incidents that can cause injuries, we remind all people in the room to keep their earpieces away from all microphones. When you are not using your earpiece, place it face down on the middle of the sticker. Please consult the cards on the table for guidelines to prevent audio feedback incidents. These measures are in place so we can protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters that conduct our business without interruption. Thank you all for your cooperation. I believe the officials are here till about 11:45, so I believe we can begin. Thank you, merci.
Good morning. Je m'appelle Lauriane Kempton. Je suis secrétaire adjointe du cabinet communication au Bureau de Conseil Privé. I'm joined today by Alan Sutherland, Assistant Secretary to the Cabinet for Machinery of Government and Democratic Institutions with the Privy Council Office, Vanessa Lloyd, Chair of the Security and Intelligence Threats to Elections Task Force, Bridget Walsh, Associate Head, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, part of the Communications Security Establishment, and Larissa Galadza, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister of the International Security and Political Affairs Branch at Global Affairs Canada. Les personnes suivantes se joignent à nous virtuellement. Greg O'Hayan, Directeur général, Police fédérale, Renseignement de sécurité à la Gendarmerie royale du Canada, et Anam Alvi, dirigeant exécutif, Direction des opérations, Service canadien du renseignement de sécurité. I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Quelques participants se joignent à nous virtuellement et chacun d'entre nous se trouve sur des terres habitées par des peuples autochtones depuis des temps immémoriaux. Je vous invite à prendre quelques instants pour reconnaître l'importance des terres sous lesquelles vous vivez. During last week's update on protecting the 45th general election from foreign interference, we outlined a new candidate security program and addressed the threat posed by transnational repression. A reminder that the candidate security program is in place for those who feel intimidated or threatened. The program provides an additional layer of security through unarmed private sector security services to candidates. More information is available at the Democratic Institution's webpage. Un certain nombre de questions ont été soulevées sur la façon dont le gouvernement du Canada collabore avec les plateformes de médias sociaux. J'aimerais donc vous présenter plus d'informations à ce sujet aujourd'hui, en plus des mises à jour de la semaine. We will also be sharing an overview of CSE's Cyber Threats to Canada's Democratic Process Report. The panel of the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol continues to meet and receive regular briefings from the Security and Intelligence Threats to Election Task Force, also known as SITE. At this time, the panel has not found any incidents that have impacted Canada's ability to have a free and fair election. Pour le moment, le groupe d'experts n'a relevé aucun incident nuisant à la capacité du Canada de tenir des élections libres et équitables. We are aware of an information operation targeting the 45th general election on the social media platform WeChat. The information operation was launched by Yoli Yomien, WeChat's most popular news account. Intelligence reporting links the Yoli Yomien account to the PRC, Chinese Communist Party's Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission. The content of this information operation contains story about the Prime Minister, Liberal Party of Canada leader, and candidate in Nepean, Mark Carney. This content has been amplified in a coordinated and inauthentic way. This information operation had contrasting positive and negative narratives, first amplifying Mr. Carney's stance with the United States, and then targeting his experience and credentials. The SITE task force assesses that the foreign state-backed information operation was intended to influence Canadian Chinese communities and look to mold perceptions about the candidate. The campaign received high levels of user engagement and views, between 85,000 and 130,000 interactions, and an estimate of 1 to 3 million views. WeChat developer Tencent reports that the platform itself has over 1.3 billion monthly active users, but has not disclosed how many of those users live overseas. The activity saw large spikes of what is believed to be coordinated inauthentic behavior on March 10th and 25th, 2025. Following increasing levels of engagement on the platform, the Liberal Party representative was briefed about the findings on April 6th. The site task force will be discussing this issue with Tencent, the developer of WeChat, later today to raise our concerns. Nous sommes au courant d'une opération d'information ciblant la 45e élection générale sur la plateforme des médias sociaux WeChat. L'opération d'information a été lancée par Yoli Yomien, le compte de nouvelles le plus populaire de WeChat. Les services de renseignement établissent un lien entre le compte Yoli Yomien et la Commission centrale sur les questions politiques et juridiques du Parti communiste chinois en République populaire de Chine. Cette opération d'information diffuse des histoires sur le premier ministre, chef du Parti libéral du Canada et candidat dans la circonscription de Nepean, Mark Carney. Ce contenu a été amplifié de manière coordonnée et non authentique. Cette opération d'information répandait des récits contrastés, amplifiant d'abord la position de M. Carney à l'égard des États-Unis, puis ciblant son expérience et ses qualifications. Selon l'évaluation du groupe de travail, l'opération d'information soutenue par un État étranger était destinée aux communautés sino-canadiennes et visait à façonner les points de vue à l'égard du candidat. La campagne a généré des niveaux élevés de réaction et de visionnement chez les utilisateurs, entre 85 000 et 130 000 interactions et de 1 à 3 millions de vues, selon les estimations. Le développeur de WeChat, Tencent, indique que la plateforme elle-même compte plus de 1,3 milliard d'utilisateurs actifs par mois, mais n'a pas révélé combien de ces utilisateurs vivent à l'étranger. Les 10 et 25 mars 2025, des pics d'activité ont été observés, ce qui correspondrait à un comportement non authentique coordonné. À la suite de l'augmentation des niveaux d'interaction sur la plateforme, le représentant du Parti libéral a été informé des constatations le 6 avril. Le groupe de travail discutera de cette question avec Tencent, le développeur de WeChat, plus tard aujourd'hui, pour faire connaître nos préoccupations. As part of our efforts to be more transparent with Canadians, we have also published a backgrounder which details our findings about this latest information operation. This backgrounder is included in the news release being issued today. At this time, the panel has determined that this is not affecting Canada's ability to have a free and fair election. This case is contained to one platform and has not spread further, nor is it affecting Canadians' abilities to make informed decisions about their vote. Les Canadiens doivent retenir qu'il s'agit d'un compte soutenu par un État étranger et que l'information qu'il diffuse pourrait être destinée à manipuler l'opinion publique. We continue to encourage Canadians to verify and question the information they see online. L'espace numérique est au centre des discussions sur la protection des élections du Canada. As outlined in previous Site Task Force briefings, the current threat landscape is unique from previous election periods, in part as threat actors adapt their methods and conceal their foreign interference activities. Cette évaluation s'applique également au paysage numérique, compte tenu des progrès des technologies émergentes, y compris l'intelligence artificielle. For instance, mis- and disinformation online can be fueled by artificial intelligence through its ability to leverage algorithms to amplify messages and content, and its ability to further generate fake images and videos such as deepfakes. Il incombe à chacun de protéger et de promouvoir l'intégrité de l'information en ligne, tous les membres de la société canadienne ont un rôle important à jouer. This was underscored in a recent Government of Canada statement of Canadian democratic principles that calls on all of society to take action to protect the democratic principles of integrity, transparency, authenticity, and accountability. It is also why the government has been engaging with representatives from social media platforms and tech companies for several months to discuss our mutual commitment to free, fair, and secure elections. These discussions are ongoing and have been productive. Le maintien d'une communication ouverte avec les intervenants de plateformes de médias sociaux est particulièrement crucial pendant une période électorale. Government of Canada officials are meeting regularly with platforms to share information on emerging issues and encourage them to uphold the principles of integrity, transparency, and authenticity. We also engage platforms to share information regarding online activities that may threaten democratic process integrity, such as foreign information manipulation and interference operations, suspected bot activity, and coordinated inauthentic behavior. Nous comptons sur les plateformes des médias sociaux pour honorer leur engagement et faire respecter les normes communautaires. Each platform has their own rules in terms of services and ways to report disinformation. Content that violates these terms should be reported to the platform. Cette responsabilité est parfois assumée par le gouvernement, mais elle devrait également incomber aux utilisateurs individuels. Questions about social and digital media platforms' actions or services should be addressed directly with the individual platforms. It is important that we all remain vigilant and proactive to help ensure the safety of our collective digital environment and the integrity of the information we consume online. We cannot and will not take for granted the system that underpins our rights, freedoms, and Canadian values that we hold dear. Democracy thrives in the light and in our collective actions. Nous encourageons les Canadiens à utiliser les ressources et les outils offerts sur la page web des institutions démocratiques et sur le site web de la campagne de sensibilisation publique Pensée cybersécurité du CST. The panel will continue to meet regularly to be briefed by the site task force. This will be done at least once a week or more often as required. Nous continuerons de préserver l'intégrité des élections pour tous les Canadiens. I would like now to pass the floor to my colleague Bridget Walsh for an overview of the cyber threats to Canada's democratic process report. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorianne. As members of the site task force, our organizations are constantly monitoring the threat landscape and continue to do so during the 45th general election period. And within the mandate of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, our team's focus is on foreign cyber threats. Today, I will outline and highlight the Cyber Centre's latest assessment of the cyber threat landscape. But first, some information for you about our organization and what we do. The Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity is a part of the Communication Security Establishment Canada, or CSE. CSE is the Government of Canada's Foreign Signals Intelligence Agency. We alert the government to activities of foreign entities that seek to undermine Canada's national prosperity and security. CSE uses its Foreign Signals Intelligence mandate to contribute intelligence to the site task force. Our organization is also uniquely placed to analyze the cyber threat landscape, and we have specific, up-to-date assessments from analysis to share with you today. We have found that hostile actors are increasingly leveraging artificial intelligence tools in attempts to interfere in democratic processes around the globe, and that this poses a real and growing threat to Canada's democratic processes. Nous concluons que les auteurs de menaces hostiles tirent parti des outils d'intelligence artificielle pour tenter de s'ingérer dans les processus démocratiques partout dans le monde, et qu'ils représentent une menace réelle et croissante contre les processus démocratiques du Canada. Since 2023, we have all seen a dramatic increase in the capability and availability of AI tools. Anyone can easily access AI to analyze data, write text, or construct convincing images. At the same time, our Cyber Center team has observed an increase in the amount of AI-enabled cyber threat activity targeting elections worldwide. We examined 151 elections globally over the past 2 years. While we use a wide range of sources to analyze cyber threats, the data we analyze almost certainly underestimates the total amount of AI-enabled threat activity targeting global democratic processes because not all cyber activity is reported or detected, and deepfakes and AI-generated text can be difficult to identify or distinguish from normal human-generated content. What we know for sure is that AI now plays a pervasive role in political disinformation, as well as the harassment of political figures. AI can also be used to enhance hostile actors' capacity to carry out cyber espionage and malicious cyber activities. We see 3 main ways that AI is used in disinformation. 1, to generate believable-looking content. 2, to conduct marketing-style research to enable threat actors to have the biggest impact in spreading disinformation. And 3, in managing fake accounts or botnet accounts on social media platforms. For example, AI can be used to create hundreds or thousands of fake accounts that automatically spread mis- and disinformation without a human needing to be involved. It is not uncommon for AI-assisted fake accounts like these to have 100,000 followers. And what we have observed globally, the majority of past attributed AI-enabled cyber threat activity originates from state-sponsored actors with links to 3 foreign states: the People's Republic of China, Russia, and Iran. We assess their goal is almost certainly to break democratic alliances and entrench divisions within and between democratic states, while also advancing their geopolitical goals. We assess that the People's Republic of China, Russia, and Iran will very likely use AI-enabled tools to attempt to interfere with Canada's democratic processes during the 2025 election. That said, attempts to interfere are just that, attempts. We assess that it is very unlikely that disinformation or any AI-enabled cyber activity would fundamentally undermine the integrity of Canada's democratic processes in this Canadian general election. During this election period, we assess that threat actors are most likely to use generative AI as a means of creating and spreading disinformation, designed to sow division among Canadians and push narratives conducive to the interests of foreign states. First, we assess it very likely that PRC-affiliated actors will continue to specifically target Chinese communities in Canada, pushing narratives favorable to the PRC interests on social media platforms. Second, we assess that Russia and pro-Russia non-state actors have displayed an ability to create bespoke propaganda designed to enhance its virality and political impact on target states, which we know includes Canada. Third, Canadian politicians and political parties are likely to be targeted by threat actors seeking to conduct hack and leak operations. It is likely that politicians and political parties will be targeted by convincing AI-generated phishing emails in an attempt to conduct such operations. Finally, we assess it likely that Canadian public figures, especially women and members of the 2S LGBTQI+ community, are at heightened risk of being targeted by deepfake pornography. Since Canadians share a common information ecosystem with the US, Canadians have already been exposed to AI-enabled disinformation targeting US citizens. It is almost certain that this trend will continue. However, the extent to which any given piece of disinformation will gain visibility or impact among Canadians is unpredictable. Overall, we assess it likely that cyber criminals will take advantage of election-related opportunities in Canada to conduct scams and fraud without being uniquely focused on exploiting Canadian elections. We have already seen these activities occur. Further, we assess it very unlikely that hostile actors will carry out a destructive cyber attack against election infrastructure, such as attempting to paralyze telecommunications systems on election day. While it is difficult to predict what disinformation or influence campaigns will gain traction, as noted earlier, we assess that it is very unlikely that disinformation or AI-enabled cyber activity would fundamentally undermine the integrity of Canada's democratic processes in this general election. Même s'il est difficile de prévoir quelles campagnes de désinformation ou d'influence gagneront en popularité, nous croyons, comme nous avons fait remarquer plus tôt, qu'il est très peu probable que la désinformation ou toute cyberactivité par l'IA porte fondamentalement atteinte à l'intégrité des processus démocratiques du Canada lors de ces élections générales. As AI technologies continue to advance and cyber adversaries improve their proficiency in using AI, the threat against future Canadian general elections is likely to increase. That's a major part of why we are here, to build on the work we have been doing to spread the word about the threats we see, and talk about the ways that all Canadians can work together to counter those threats. The Cyber Centre provides cybersecurity advice and guidance to all major political parties, in part through publications such as the Cybersecurity Guide for Campaign Teams and Cybersecurity Advice for Political Candidates. We have also published cybersecurity guidance for elections authorities, cybersecurity guidance on generative artificial intelligence, and a guide on security considerations when using social media in your organization. The Cyber Centre also works closely with Elections Canada to protect its infrastructure. We encourage Canadians to consult the Cyber Centre's resources, including the National Cyber Threat Assessment 2025-2026, and how to identify misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, as well as the fact sheet for Canadian voters. CSC's public awareness campaign Get Cyber Safe will also continue to publish relevant advice and guidance to inform Canadians about cybersecurity and simple steps we can take to protect ourselves online. C'est en tant que citoyennes et citoyens informés des menaces à la démocratie, y compris la désinformation et l'ingérence étrangère, que nous pouvons faire preuve de l'esprit critique pour évaluer information et résister à la manipulation afin de voter en toute confiance. We, as citizens who are informed about threats to democracy, including disinformation and foreign interference, are better equipped to critically evaluate information and to resist manipulation, to confidently cast our votes.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. We'll turn to questions now. We'll start with Janice McGregor, CBC.
Good morning, everyone. I want to ask a question about the kind of briefings that your group is involved with the particular parties. I mean, you gave us an example of one that happened, I guess it was just yesterday, about this particular attack that you're reporting today. But I'm curious whether this information exchange also concerns intelligence information that may have been collected about particular candidates. I'll give you an example. Last week, there was a Conservative candidate in Etobicoke North that was removed, and there's information in the public domain that this individual has ties to the BJP. Is this something that would have been discussed with the Conservative Party as an exchange of information in the context of election safety related briefings? When you see who the nominated candidates are that are running, if your agencies have information about them that is raising a national security flag, is that something that is discussed then with the political parties during these information exchanges?
Thanks. I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Vanessa. So the decision as to who stands as a candidate in any general election is the purview of the party entirely. Vanessa, is there anything you'd like to add?
Certainly. So thank you for the question. So as we've mentioned at these briefings before, the site task force, all of the members are very much committed to making sure that we share with all of the parties in a very nonpartisan way information that can be relevant to them in terms of the intents and activities of foreign actors with regards to this democratic process. That being said, site is not in the business or a line of activity of vetting candidates. And so as Lori-Ann said, the choices of any of the parties to put forward their nominees is entirely within their domain. And the briefings that we have had with them have been related to the threat landscape in general of the foreign state actors, as well as helping those parties and candidates to protect themselves in terms of potential threats for violent extremist groups. And that relates to the candidate security program that we also spoke about last week. Thank you.
Okay, so not about those matters. My other question is just more about a comparison between what we learned subsequently at the inquiry about the previous election and orchestrated attacks against, I believe it was particular Conservative ridings last time that sort of concerns came out eventually after the fact about the 2021 election versus this time now. If you had to consider how things unfolded in the last election versus now, how safe is our vote this time so far?
Vanessa, do you want to start
Sure,
with that?
Sure. I think there's a number of things to keep in mind that are different from the last couple of general elections and now. And one is these briefings. So the fact that we're coming before you every week to talk to you about the various tactics and techniques that could be used during the general election is a huge part of how we're equipping Canadians to be able to, for example, as Bridget just spoke about, assess the information ecosystem and be able to identify in particular disinformation campaigns. Again, the role of site has significantly evolved since the last two general elections. As you're aware, we have been stood up for by-elections since 2023, a total of 12 by-elections so far. So in each of those instances, we have had an enhanced monitoring, which allows us to be alert to the types of activities that could happen during this election. And that's why you saw such a robust discussion in our first tech briefing of the threat landscape and what we expected to see, and why the themes in these briefings have been over the types of activities in a range of domains that we might be concerned about during this general election.
Maybe Vanessa, if I could build off of that. I mean, one of the things that has been talked about in the briefings and this week and in past weeks is that, adversaries' tactics change over time. I think it's also important to know and to realize that Canada's tactics change over time too. They change because we learn from our allies, and they change from the substantial amount of evaluation that's gone on. We really benefited from the foreign interference inquiry. We benefited from the reviews that have occurred after each election of the critical election incident public protocol. Techniques also improve from the site task members. So all these things, I think, together, along with new instruments such as these weekly tech briefings, improved briefings of political parties, better engagement of the social media companies, all contribute to, I think, good reasons for Canadians to have confidence in their elections.
Jim Bronskill, Canadian Press.
Good morning. Concerning the operation against Mr. Carney that you outlined today, could you provide us with a little bit more information? There's some in the materials, thank you. But about the intent and nature of the information that was amplified online.
So maybe I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Larissa. So I don't think we can speak to the intent. I will say that the PRC should not be trying to shape the opinions of Canadians, especially during an election period. But it was the RRM who was involved in this. So Larissa, maybe you'd like to add to that.
Sure, thank you. I agree with Lori-Ann that we're not going to speak to the intent. I think at our first tech brief, we spoke about China in general and how we see them behaving in the Canadian ecosystem and in other elections. In this case, as we've noted in the news release in the background, there were contrasting positive and negative narratives. I think what is important for all of us to take away from the information being presented today is that intelligence links this account to entities of the People's Republic of China, and so whether that's the narratives about Mr. Carney, any other public figure in Canada, or anything else, it's important for Canadians to understand this link that has been covert.
Concerning the timeline, you indicate that a Liberal representative was briefed, I believe, yesterday. It was first noticed March 10th and March 25th, and I think there's a suggestion that the narrative was amplified online, but sometime after that. If you could give us an indication as to why it would take that long to bring this to the attention formally of the Liberal representative. Maybe there's a good reason for that, but perhaps you could explain the timeline there.
Sure, happy to. So these were the two spikes of activity that we saw. March 10th was outside of the Liberal Party leadership campaign, and so SITE was not active in providing advice at that time. In terms of the spike on March 25th, that's when we first noticed it, and then we monitored the activity to be able to confidently identify the source and the connection, and that was brought to the attention of the panel last week, and the Liberal Party was briefed shortly thereafter.
Ryan Tumulty, Toronto Star.
Yeah, good morning. You said in your opening remarks in the press release that you don't believe that this campaign was enough to influence Canada's ability to have a free and fair election because it was only on one social media platform, and I guess a more niche social media platform as it is. I'm wondering if you guys have identified a threshold for inaccurate or inauthentic material spreading on social media. Is it 2 platforms? Is it 3? Like, what is the threshold you guys have identified where you feel it would breach the free and fair election standard?
Sure. This is the core function of the panel of 5, so the protocol that's set up. And it's not a simple arithmetic calculation. It's not number of platforms. It'll be a range of things from its potential impact, whether it's in a single riding or across the country, the number of people likely influenced, how convincing is it? It's really like 5-6 dimensions to it. So the threshold is really about nuanced judgment, and that's the judgment that the panel will be making.
I think maybe the other piece I would add to that is it is difficult for us to understand how many Canadians may have seen these narratives because of the platform that it is, and the posts of Larissa, correct me if I'm wrong, were posted in simplified Chinese. And so they have a large base of monthly active users, but it's unclear to us how many Canadians might have seen the narrative. So it was important for us to flag it, but it's difficult to gauge beyond that.
And then just as a follow-up, WeChat was identified in the campaign targeting Liberal candidate Chrystia Freeland and Michael Chong as well. I know in the last election it was identified in the Foreign Interference Commission as targeting voters. Both Aaron O'Toole and Kenny Chu, the local candidate in Richmond. I'm wondering what your interactions with this company have been, and also sort of what recommendation you would have to Canadians who may still look at WeChat as a reliable source of news and information.
Larissa, can I invite you to take that question?
We've engaged with Tencent on a number of occasions and at various levels, and we've done so in collaboration with our colleagues. They are the kind of conversation that we have with the other platforms as well, where where our approach is to point out the activity that we're witnessing that we believe contravene their terms of service, and ask them to turn their attention to it. We do not ask platforms to take a specific action other than to pay attention to this material, because it's not the government's role to be policing these platforms or telling private companies how to behave, but they have their own terms of service. And if we see something, we ask them to compare. And that's been the discussion with Tencent as well, and will continue to be.
And on whether to accept it as a reliable source of information?
There are so many platforms of information. When we see something specific in the context of site, the purpose of these briefings is to bring that to the attention of Canadians. And we hope that we all learn from this also what the sort of more general principles are that we should apply to our consumption of social media. And today we're providing a very important piece of information about the #1 most popular account on WeChat.
I see 2 questioners in the room, the Globe and Mail, Parliament Today Online, and 9 minutes on the clock. So I think we can make it, but we'll start with Peter. Go ahead.
Thanks. Peter Mauser from the Hill Times. Does the government have any specific plan or ability to counter disinformation that's sent to Canadian voters who speak only Chinese or primarily Chinese?
Products.
Yeah, so for Canadians who speak only Chinese, we have available to them advice on how to ensure that they are not being subject to mis and disinformation. This has been translated into 10 languages, and I believe 2 types of Chinese are part of that product base.
And those products are available on the Democratic Institution's website, including a toolkit.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned before, these briefings are a big part of the work that you're doing to try and fight back against this stuff. But if no one in here is publishing in the Chinese language, then how does that community get these messages that what they're seeing on their screens might be disinformation?
There are other ways that we get out the word to Chinese diaspora groups. There is, for instance, the Digital Citizenship Initiative, which has been in place for about 6 years. There have been over 150 different projects. Some of them are targeted, or they're projects that are with minority language groups, and their purpose is to promote things like digital citizen literacy and critical media literacy as well. So that would be a way to get out the word in the community generally. In addition, there's also different parts of the government, it happens to be public safety, have good connections with different diaspora groups, and they have those conversations as well.
Christopher Nardi, National Post.
I just want to come back to the content. My last Mandarin class was 13 years ago, so I used Google to translate them. And from the examples that are in the backgrounder, it appears that the content is mostly promoting Mr. Carney's strength. I think the language that it says is United States meets Canada's tough opponent. And so, Ms. Gladzo, you mentioned something about negative and positive in the background. I didn't see that, but it appears to me from what's in here that the content is, I don't know if it's promoting Mr. Carney, but it seems very cast him in a positive light. Is that broadly what this content that you've seen, that this particular campaign, is that what it seemed to be doing overall?
We monitored over the period of time specified, and we saw positive and negative narratives. I think a really important aspect of the work that we do in CITE and in these briefings is to not further amplify information that is out there at the interest, at the behest of a foreign government. And so, yeah, there were positive and negative.
So then what would be the point of the campaign if they're both undermining him and promoting him?
So I mean, I think maybe, you know, disinformation is one thing, but this kind of coordinated inauthentic behavior is just an attempt to pollute the digital environment and try to shape opinions one way or the other. I think, and Vanessa will correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's fair to say the PRC is party agnostic. Like this isn't an attempt one way or another, but it is to kind of sow confusion and discord in the digital environment.
I would say also that our mandate isn't to first understand the point of a foreign information manipulation operation. It's to identify it, to confirm that it is coordinated, inauthentic behavior, that it is state-backed, and to ensure that Canadians are informed that is happening.
Said it all, but to echo, the People's Republic of China is largely party agnostic in terms of its approach, and certainly as the information ecosystem is changing, then that can account for positive narratives in one instance and negative in the other.
Thank you. We'll turn to our phone lines to two questioners. Stephen Chase, Globe and Mail.
Hi, Steve here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to ask if you could give us a copy of these articles that were, provide copies to the media of these articles that were circulating so we could further analyze them, because as Chris said, they seem to be largely promotional and positive towards Mr. Carney. So I'd like to ask you as well to explain what you mean by, in layman's language, amplifying narratives in a coordinated and inauthentic way. What does that mean in layman's language?
Sure. So you can imagine how you behave on social media. You see something, you like it, you write a comment on it, and over time, a story can spread if it's popular, or if it doesn't, it dies. We're all familiar with the concept of something going viral, something spreading very, very fast, and through digital analysis, we can see what is the mechanism of that speed of spread. Who is doing the spreading? And so when we talk about coordinated and inauthentic behavior, we see things, for instance, like the same headline appearing across multiple media sources, foreign media sources usually, using the exact same headline and being posted within minutes, if not seconds, of each other. So that's not a typical organic kind of spread of information. The thing that we can do is look at who the account owners are, who are spreading, who are reposting, and we can tell from digital footprint and mapping the networks whether these are likely to be real people, or in fact a mechanism like my colleague Bridget spoke about today, bot farms or AI generated spread. So that's a couple of examples of what we would call coordinated and inauthentic behavior.
My follow-up question is, you keep repeating that phrase about how the PRC is party agnostic, but the next part of that often repeated maxim is that it picks candidates it thinks will promote its vision, and it will promote those candidates. So in this case, the information you've given us talks about responsible and decent Mark Carney, a tough prime minister from Canada, all these things. Are you saying that when you tell us that this was intended to influence Chinese Canadian communities in Canada and mold perceptions about him, you can't determine if they were positive perceptions or negative perceptions? You don't have that ability?
Vanessa or Larissa?
So I think we want to be careful to emphasize the point of sharing this information with Canadians. As Larissa mentioned, and in Bridget's remarks, the important part of information that we're sharing with you today is to be clear with Canadians that the account that has made these posts is linked to the People's Republic of China and to the Chinese Communist Party in particular, and that intelligence has provided that there is a concerted effort behind that entity within the Communist Party to spread and manipulate the narrative that Canadians are seeing. And so we should all keep in mind that a hallmark of democracy is to be able to have such a debate during an election period, and it is for Canadians to have that debate unfettered by the influence of a foreign state.
I'll squeeze in the last question. Palak Mangat, Parliament Today.
Hi, I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
Yes.
I take your point about this kind of being nuanced judgment, but you said it's not likely, in saying that it's not likely to impact the ability for a free and fair election. Can you just be a little bit more specific in what makes you confident in saying that even? And is there thought to how this could impact the results of the specific riding, or is that just out of sight's bailiwick here?
I think maybe I'd start with, so part of it is that it is contained to a very specific social media platform, and that Canadians have the ability to get information, get information about their vote from a variety of sources. So it's not kind of a monolithic approach. And so the panel felt that it was important, and as did CITE, that we come forward and share this information, both because of the level of engagement on this one platform, but also, as Vanessa had said, the link of this particular account to the PRC. That being said, there's no evidence to suggest at the moment that it has any impact on how people may choose to cast their vote. Larissa?
And I think even less of an impact now that we are shining a light on it, and that's an important thing to take away from today's briefing.
And as a follow-up, are there any other incidents on CITE's radar involving other party leaders, and where are those at and being addressed, and what types of recourse might they have?
So CITE remains committed to sharing information that we believe Canadians need to have in order to defend themselves against disinformation. That, as my colleagues have said, is a way that we are equipping Canadians through these briefings, but also through the products that are available on the Democratic Institution's website to be able to assess for themselves information in the ecosystem. If we observe other things that regardless of the party, we will come forward where we can share that information with Canadians to help them confidently cast their votes.
Thank you. Merci. That appears to be all the time we have for questions today. And a special note, thank you for showing up on time. We've had some instances where that does not happen in this town. So thank you.